It's New York City in the year 1843. Two men talk about a certain girl possibly having the devil inside of her. One of them wants the girl gone alongside her devil. The other man is softer on her, saying she is not evil. Later, they interrogate a girl named Mary. She has a blindfold covering her eyes. They are doing this because of certain events we currently don't know about, which took place on a farm. She gets asked if she understands the charges placed on her. After telling them she does, two gunmen aim their rifles at her, while she recites a prayer she was asked to recite. When she finishes, the weapons get lowered. One of the interrogators does not know how they should proceed from this point. In the next scene, a man and his wife talk to an elderly lady about Mary. They say she engages in certain acts with the housemaid. The couple seeks help from the elder lady, who tells one of them to have their brother come to the farm. Later, several people with lanterns come to a house. Mary looks out of the window of the house to see them. After that, the owners of the housemaid, Eleanor, talk about her kindly with a priest. But they also want to get rid of her wicked ways. What he says is that her roots seem to be too deep into her wickedness. The next scene has Mary and Eleanor on their knees, while Mary recites a prayer in front of many people with her knees against a bag of rice. Then Mary stands up. Eleanor stands shortly after. Subsequently, Mary wears a blindfold again. She stands before the constable, telling him Lucifer was an angel before he became the devil. Her point is that God creates enemies to perform his good. Later, a boy comes to someone resting on a tree to ask why Eleanor was punished with Mary last night. The guy starts telling him a story about how the guard tried to run away, but his father caught and punished him severely. He answers the boy's question by saying those two girls played a dangerous game, so they received a punishment as well. During some other time, the boy spies on the two girls as they talk to each other affectionately. One of them starts crying, while the other says she won't let the people break them apart. The boy moves along his wooden stand until he injures himself on a sharp piece of wood. That causes him to make a noise, which makes the girls look in his direction. However, they see nothing. On another day, Eleanor brings the guard some food. He tells her fear and weakness keep them there, not devotion. Then he shows her his wounded leg. Not wanting the food, he tells her to feed the chickens with it, so she does. At night, Mary comes to her brother, noticing his foot is injured. When she inspects it, she finds a splinter and starts removing it with a knife. Meanwhile, Eleanor makes a deal with the guard. She wants to hide in the coop with Mary at night. If he doesn't say anything, she will give him bread. Afterward, we see the two girls lying in the coop together, which satisfies them. At a different time, Eleanor makes bread while Eustace is there. When Mary comes in, he says another correction is needed. The scene shifts to the boy standing beside a door, listening to the girls getting punished again. Later, Eleanor tells the guard she can't stand another correction. His response is for her to cease her night walks. She says she will make more bread for him. The man wants one more loaf. In the next scene, we see the people sitting in the house while saying a prayer. In bed, Randolph tells his wife, Agnes, that Eleanor is possibly learning. He questions if the corrections are necessary, because she recited the prayers without fallacy. He fears the consequences of that. Agnes wonders what he means, but he cannot answer at the moment. Inside the coop, Mary tells Eleanor they should run away tonight to avoid all their trouble. Eleanor thinks the guard, Theodore, deserves to leave too. Shortly after, they start getting intimate. Then we see Eustace's son finding blood on the floor. He follows the tracks and eventually comes to see someone to inform them that the boy, Matthew, has left the house. In the coop, Eleanor starts reading to Mary the story called The Temple of Earthly Desires. In the story, the conclusion states that whoever tried to satisfy their appetite would be punished greatly. Following that, Eleanor starts reading another one, The Old Lady of Bethabara. As soon as she starts, however, someone scares them with their presence. It is Matthew. Mary tells him to go back into the house and not speak of this to anyone. The lantern goes out after her words. Mary worriedly calls out Eleanor's name. Soon the light returns. Mary observes the elderly lady holding Eleanor with levitation. She starts choking the maid. Matthew is there to witness it, while stating all the negative aspects she is being punished for. When the elderly lady removes her fingers, we see blood on Eleanor's neck. The lady tells the maid she will soon leave the house. After that, the levitation wears off, making Eleanor fall. Mary sits to watch her. At some point, Theodore places a small black ball in her hand. We also see someone place the same substance in a cup of tea. Its blackness dissolves until it quickly vanishes. Later, Matthew stands in Mary's room, telling her he's sorry. She says he was snitching on her, that he was the cause of this trouble, though he insists he did not do it. In another room, Randolph asks the elderly lady if Eleanor will be moved away. The lady says she will. She also asks what is troubling him. He talks about a book he had that held things he did not believe to be true. He brought that book into this house, but someone took it. Randolph wants Eleanor to be removed today, not later. The book he brought is responsible for Mary's sinful affection. The next scene has Mary entering the room of someone we do not see. She sees something that takes her aback before collecting pieces of a broken teacup. Then she goes to the window to observe Eleanor walking outside. Once they see each other, it becomes revealed that the elderly lady has lost her life. Her funeral is what follows. During the funeral, we see someone approach the house premises. Theodore points his gun at him, yet the stranger wants to do business. He gets told today is a day of mourning, not of business. The stranger tells him he brought what he was called for, before dropping a bag. He asks what happened to the chickens. and Theodore tells him rats infested the coop. He also tells the stranger where to go to meet Eleanor. Furthermore, he informs him she is incapable of talking. The stranger receives an item to give to the girl. While they all stay in the room with the coffin, we see the elderly lady's finger move. Meanwhile, the stranger is led inside by Eleanor, who gives him a pouch with money. Mary now sees the finger move several times. While the stranger works alongside Eleanor, he tells her that when he was born, the doctor said his face has a mark because of an imperfection in his brain. Then others start witnessing the moving finger. The stranger speaks of a third doctor who told his mother a child born out of wedlock will carry a mark of the sin that was committed. A monstrous birth, the stranger adds. The doctor made his mother promise to get rid of him, so he ended her life on that day. Afterward, he shows her the pouch Theodore gave him. He wants to know what she can offer him for it. At that moment, Eleanor tries to run away, but he catches her. He starts getting intimate with her, while we observe Randolph attempting to sever the finger of the elderly lady. A loud sound from another room stops him. A short while later, the stranger gives Eleanor the pouch while she prepares food. He asks if he can take some bread. We see the elderly lady's finger begin to blacken. While the stranger reaches for the bread, Eleanor comes to him to help him choose. She cuts his finger off in the process. The yell he emits makes the people hear him. When Mary enters the room to find out what happened, the stranger takes a loaf of bread before he flees. Eleanor shows Mary the pouch, and they soon start touching each other. Unfortunately for them, Eustace's son is there, watching. In the next scene, we see Eleanor on her knees, while having her hands tied behind her back. Eustace's son is there, perhaps punishing her. The time comes for the family to eat. Eleanor remains in her position where they can see her. They sit at the table calmly until they all reach for the bread simultaneously, as if they have no manners. After they eat, Mary prepares the tea. While she's there alone, she empties the pouch in her hands, looking at the black balls. Then she brings the tea to the family. Matthew receives his cup last. However, since the boy places too much sugar in his tea, Randolph switches their cups. Mary witnesses this, which makes her nervous. Once they all finish their consumption, the grandfather stands and almost falls over. Eustace's son has to hold him. Matthew starts coughing up black liquid. He loses his life soon after. The others follow in his misfortune. Hearing what took place, Eleanor slowly stands to look at Mary, who runs to her, and they start kissing. Randolph is left sitting alive. Mary puts her hand in the black liquid, telling her father that this is what silence did to the family. That is the price of correction. She tells him to speak, but the man gets shot by someone. The girls see that it's the stranger who now points the gun at them. We see that he received the gun from Theodore. Mary tells him to go home. Her words do not send him away, so she tells him there is gold in the house she could give him. However, the stranger shoots Eleanor to her demise. At that point, Mary wants to know who called him into the house. That is when we witness the elderly lady begin to elevate behind Mary. She comes behind the girl, saying it is misguided to fight her. She follows up by giving Mary the book her father brought into the house. The girl starts reading it. The first sentence mentions a noblewoman that loved her female servant. Upon reading that, Mary gets nervous, because it is similar to her and Eleanor. She continues reading that while the females were together, an old lady saw them, which prompted them to take her life. On the next day, they found her alive due to divine intervention. The old lady drowned the servant while blinding the noblewoman. After Mary finishes reading, the elderly lady places her black fingers into Mary's eyes. Later, a lawman enters the room with support. They find everyone in the room to be lifeless, even the stranger. The lawman walks along the house with his rifle pointing straight ahead. Entering Mary's room, he tells her to raise her hands. But the girl does not do that, she says a prayer instead. Then she turns to him with missing eyes, while telling him to let her mourn for one more day. The lawmen take her outside, where they put a rope around her neck. While she is in that position, her blindfold gets removed. She remembers Eleanor's smile, before the stool supporting her gets removed. We see the girl hanging in the woods. While she does, we see her finger has blackened, and it moves.